Welcome to Forte Catholic Radio. This is your host, Taylor Schroll. I am in the Red Sea Radio Intergalactic Studios. And today, yes, today, my friends, I'm recording early in the day. It is morning time. I never record in the morning time. I'm actually recording during work. Like, I'm supposed to be at work right now, but because of my life and the fact that my co-host is not an American, we had to do it in the morning. Speaking of non-American co-host, Shaun McAfee, how you doing, man?
You should really quit saying that. People are really going to start taking you seriously. Not just there, but in other areas of your discussions, they're going to start thinking you're serious.
So I have never...
I'm proud to be an American.
Oh, just because you know the songs doesn't mean you're an American. I've never been so accosted at the beginning of my show. Like, I always started off with the yelling and the welcoming people in, and then usually we have this jovial conversation, and Shaun just goes, "You should change everything about yourself."
Stop it.
Stop everything. So first of all, you're not American. You live in Italy. And second of all, I'm not changing. Not for anyone. Not for you. Shaun, what's going on in your life, man?
Okay. I just finished a book for Catholic Answers. It's a really short one in their 20 Answers series. So I'm really happy about that. I knocked that out in, I think, a world record time, 30 days, and I get to move on to the next project.
This is why I like you, Shaun.
Which is reforming really your show.
Yeah, this is what I like about you. The two things I like about you. Number one, you just come on, just throwing barbs. The next thing you do, right after insulting me at the beginning of my show, is self-promotion. I love you so much, Shaun McAfee. Jesus, what have you been doing recently? Well, if you go to www.ShaunMcAfee.com, you can find all the...
You'll see I haven't updated that website in months.
Oh, yeah. You look so young on that website, which means you have not updated that website in years. Shaun, there was a thing that happened in America this Sunday that I'm not sure that you are aware of. On Sunday evening. Any idea what happened in America?
I don't know. Some about somebody named after the Sesame Street guy.
Yes, Oscar the Grouch gave out his yearly awards to all the people in movies, which is odd because he's a TV show character. Like, it would make more sense if they had made like an Oscar the Grouch movie and then named it after him. Like, they always have like the somebody passes away and then they have that, like, the award becomes named after them, right? What's also really confusing is it's not only the Oscar the Grouch Awards, but it also has another name. Do you know that name?
The Academy Awards?
The Academy Awards. It's very confusing. It's like whenever Catholics say, "I'm Catholic, I'm Christian." Like, they're both true, but why is it so convoluted and confusing, right? It's the same thing.
So you don't say, "I would like to thank the Oscars."
All Oscars in the congregation: Oscar de la Hoya, Oscar the Grouch, and also Oscar the man that is currently running the soundboard for this event. Yeah, thank you, all Oscars. They it's called the Academy Awards, which makes me think, and I'm going to see if you understand this joke since you're not American. I don't know if they have this store in other countries, but I always thought that they gave the award for the actor who had the right stuff for the right price. You know what I'm talking? You picking up what I'm laying down? Yeah,
no.
You're shaking your head on the radio. Jeez Louise, Shaun.
Well, if I do it harder, you can hear it.
Oh my gosh, I actually could. That's how. Anytime I ask you a yes or no question, that's what you have to do now. So you didn't understand. It's Academy Sports and Outdoors. The right stuff, the right price. Academy. It's the Academy Awards. No.
Is that sounds like a jingle? Is that a commercial?
Yes, for Academy, which is an American store that we have in America that all Americans know about. So, speaking of, so the Oscars / Academy Awards happened this Sunday. And there are all these movies and actors and actresses, and essentially they go out and it's just a political commentary under the guise of an award show for 4 hours. And so my wife and I, we didn't watch the beginning because it's all the awards that like aren't as cool, right? Like I know like I'm sure the people that did this, like, everybody matters on the crew, but like, I don't know the sound editors or the makeup artists. Like, I know all the actors that are up for, all but one of the actors and actresses up for best actor, best supporting actor, best supporting actor. So like, my wife and I tuned in for that part, and we enjoyed it. Yeah, like there was like, like the finger pointing from Hollywood, like, this is how you should politic, But other than that, like, the performances were good. It was cool to see all the different movies and how they were. They kind of did like a snapshot of all the movies that were up for best picture, and there seemed to be some good movies, right? But I didn't watch any of those that were up for like picture of the year or movie of the year. I watched one of them, Black Panther, and I wasn't super impressed with that movie. So I knew it wasn't
good reviews about that.
But you didn't see it, huh?
It was a historical drama, right?
Yes, it was actually a documentary about this. How Atlantis is like the lost city under in the ocean. Yes. There's this documentary about this country that used to be in Africa called Wakanda, and they were just so advanced as a civilization, but then it was just lost to history, and these documentarians found it. It was really good. They found this. Never mind. I'm not going to keep going on that. Okay, so
and then Infinity War was about like a war that never ends, right?
Yeah, it was World War III. It was a futuristic show. World War III, and it was like, this is the war that never ends, and it goes on and on, my friends. And so I didn't watch any of those. So I wanted to do right here on Forte Catholic something we haven't done in a very long time, Shaun. Ever since we started this whole rotating co-host thing, there was just so much going on. I'm producing the show for myself now, and dealing with all of you divas that have come on to co-host this thing. I was like, I got to make them happy. But you know what? This next 3 minutes is for me, okay? You just sit back and relax. This is for me, and this is for the people, okay? What we are going to do is bring back segments here on the show, and this segment is called the Forte Five segment. And what I do is I count down my top 5 of whatever the heck I want. And for this one, I'm going to do my top 5 movies for complete enjoyment. I am not the Academy Awards. I am not Oscar the Grouch, although sometimes Shaun makes me feel that way. So I'm going to do my top 5 movies on pure enjoyment. How much?
Hold on.
What?
I know public math is hard, but you sent me a list of 6.
Would you leave me alone? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what I did to Allison last week, and I'm going to mute you, okay? Just leave me alone.
Sir.
I can do whatever I want, okay? Leave me alone. Okay, here we go. Forte 5, top 5, plus 1. Thanks, Shaun. Okay, here we go. Oh, I hit the wrong button. See, this is what happens when I produce for myself. Let's try Forte 5, okay? All right, for my top 5 movies of enjoyment of 2018, because all of you care deeply, here's what we've got. The honorable mention that Shaun had to point out before I got here, number 6 was Bird Box. I watched it on a plane recently, and it's the only way I was going to watch that movie, because Taylor doesn't do scary movies very well, so I watched it in an already scary situation, flying 30,000 feet above the land and surrounded by other people in broad daylight, and I enjoyed it much more than other people thought. All right, now my top 5, just to make Shaun happy. Number 5, Ready Player One. I liked Ready Player One a lot. It was one of the few movies that I've ever watched that I actually read the book first. I loved the book, and the movie brought 90% of it to life. The real reason it's on this list is because I just wanted to tell you that I actually read a book in my life. Okay, number 4, Ant-Man and Wasp. I loved this story. I loved these enemies coming together to fight against evil. I loved this selfish man learning how to become unselfish. It was a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, a movie that actually won Best Animated Picture, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. My wife and I go to maybe 1, possibly 2, if we feel splurgy, movies per year in the theater. This was one of them. We spent half of my salary on a babysitter for the evening, and we went to go watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And the thing that really stuck out to me in this movie is that I cannot stand Nicolas Cage, but he was my favorite part of this movie. Number 2 is a movie that people said was stupid, but I really enjoyed it. Aquaman. I liked the whole the marriage thing where the dude waited for the woman for 90 years, 70 years. I don't know. I'm not Aquaman's biographer. I love the movie, the action-packedness of it, the fights, everything was much cooler than people said. And number 1, Mr. McAfee, was, as you said, the documentary Avengers Infinity War. That movie we have watched multiple times. I cannot get enough of that movie. I can't wait for the final movie to come out soon. That's it for me. Shaun, what do you think of my list of 6 in the Forte Five section?
Well, so explain that last comment. You said that there's a final movie to Infinity War. Is that going to be like Finite War, Infinity War?
The end is coming. All in like March and April. Winter is coming. The end of the Avengers is coming. We've got the next movie coming out next month.
Hopefully it's the last one.
Why are you so angry? Like what has happened to you today? That you know what it is. Here's what it is.
I have never enjoyed comic book movies. I gave the first few X-Men a try, and I think those are pretty cool. But I think I watched some back whenever like Punisher came out, and I was just like, I'm done.
Okay, so here's the thing. I realized after making this list that I watched 7 movies this year. So the fact that you pointed out that there were 6 on my list, there was only 1 movie that didn't make the list at all, okay? I only watched 7, so it's pretty easy to get on the list. Yeah, I'm just not a big movie guy. And what's funny is like only one of the movies on here is like critically acclaimed. All these other movies are these comic book movies that like smart, refined people, like yourself, either don't watch movies or watch these super, super sophisticated movies. I'm just like, I want to watch stuff blow up from the characters I read about when I was 7. That's what I want to do.
Which one was critically acclaimed? I'm curious.
Black Panther. Black Panther was the one movie that wasn't on my list. And I just thought it was
the historical drama.
Yeah, the historical drama. See, like, I understand the like historical importance of it, and I appreciated the movie. I love Michael B. Jordan, the actor who was like the bad guy. He just wasn't in the movie. Like he was barely in the movie. They could have done so much more with him. I just wasn't as impressed. And like the final boss fight, you couldn't see anything.
Isn't he play Creed? Doesn't he play Apollo Creed's son?
Yeah, exactly. That's also a movie that came out last year that I didn't see. So there were. I looked this up. I did in-depth research yesterday for this. Only to find out that I watched 7 movies in the 2018.
So you mean like 5 minutes of Googling from your phone?
No. I was on my computer, and it was 12 minutes, okay? Get it right. But there were like 800 movies that came out last year. Like, nobody has time for that. It's ridiculous.
No, I watch a lot more shows, honestly. I think we're in the golden age of like television, even if it's not on television.
Dude, you're telling me.
From Hulu. You're
telling me.
Or, yeah.
Okay, so what were your top movies of 2018? You don't have to do the whole fancy Forte 5 or 6, but what were some of your favorite movies that you watched that came out in last year?
You're making me have to think really hard because I don't think I watch anything besides like reruns of movies I already love. So do you want to talk about those?
No, I don't. I want you to answer my question.
Okay. What did I watch? I asked my wife to go back through our Netflix and our Amazon Prime to see what we watched this year. And I don't think we found a single movie. If it was a movie, full feature length film, it was a kid's movie. So I'm going to have to probably say like the Lego movie, but I know that didn't come out this last year. Maybe Cars 5 or whatever they're on right now.
This was cracking me up, man. So you're making fun of me for not doing enough show prep. You didn't even do any. You had your wife do it for you, right?
Yeah, so true.
You're like, okay. I asked you last night. I was like, you seriously watched 0 movies in 2018? And you said, I clipped my toenails, ? It's like, what? How do you even come up with this stuff, right? You're like,
these are things we share in private. Why are you sharing those?
No, nothing is private. You don't understand. You say I don't do show prep. Our entire relationship is my show prep.
I am keeping that in mind from now on. Nothing is sacred to you.
You want to talk about that other stuff we talked about before we came on the air today?
No.
Nope. Yeah. See, there are some things that are sacred. See, look at you.
Thank you.
So you said here we got into all this stuff. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But you didn't watch any movies. You only like children's movies. And I did go watch the Lego Movie 2 the other day. Have you seen the new one or just the old Lego Movie?
No, living overseas, I don't get like the special discounts, and special access that you do.
Yeah, special access. I'm just a regular American.
I don't get the red carpet rolled out for me for my limousine in Texas like you do.
Just a normal American. So this is cracking me up. So I just had this realization. So like anytime I go to the theater, it helps like the annual earnings, gross earnings of the movie. Anytime you go to the theater, it counts as like the international sales, which proves once again the entire point of our entire conversation that you're not American. You're an international student.
You argue well.
I'm very good at arguing. It's all I've been doing since I came out of the womb. So I watched the Lego Movie 2, but you saw the first one. What was the big turning point in the first one?
Man, why do you ask these questions you give me no prep time for? Now I have to go back and think.
I'm a hard-hitting journalist. I try to get you on your toes and make you say
the guy realizes he has what is it called? The super glue is actually what they're after the whole time is just getting the cap on the super glue. Okay,
I'm going to give you a hint. Most of the movie, it's all animated and Legos. And then the last...
Okay, yeah. And then what's his face comes down the steps. Yeah, the elf guy. What's his name?
What's his name? The elf guy comes down the steps. I believe you're looking for Will Ferrell. That's Will Ferrell that comes down the steps. And you realize it was all about a father-son relationship the whole time. And here's the crazy thing is like you mentioned these kids movies.
It'll also give you it's not just father-son relationship. This will give you like a daddy complex watching the end of that movie. It's like, whoa, watch how you talk to your kids. Because all those things that you thought were pretty important as a kid and turned out to, affect your relationship with your father. Only men, really. This is for the men out there. Turns you into thinking, hey, how am I really reacting to my kids in their playtime?
Right. So like it watching this kids movie, it's all like enjoyment for 95% of it. And at the end, I'm like, ouch, my heart, I need to change as a human being. Right. And like, we went and watched the Lego Movie 2 as a family this last week or 2 weekends ago. And I was like, there's no way they're going to have that like emotional impact again. There's no way they're going to surprise me. Like I'm going to see it coming, right? They did it again, Shaun. They did it again.
Oh, no. And you ruined it for me.
Here's the deal. I'm not ruining it. It's spoiler free. Eventually we'll talk more in depth. I know that people are super worried about spoilers into the Lego Movie Part 2, but if you are a parent, go watch this movie with your kids. I promise it will help your children. At least it helped me to help my children. Because I asked my son on the way out, I was like, hey, did you understand the point of the movie? He goes, no, but they sang songs. Oh, okay, well, we'll work on it. We'll work on it.
No, but everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome. So, hey, at some point, this is the silliest thing I've ever said in the history of the radio. We are going to do a spoiler cast on the Lego Movie Part 2 because there actually was some things to glean out of it. But right now, Shaun, I'm going to kick you out because I'm going to bring on an interview. And because you're a foreign exchange student, it's really hard to like connect phones and all this stuff for all of the, people and all of the things and all of the stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. So what we're going to do is you're going to leave us. I'm going to do an interview with Dale Ahlquist. We're going to be talking about the one and only K Chesterton. It's going to be so much fun, Shaun, and you don't get to be a part of it, but you're going to come back for the final segment of the day. Everyone else, Don't go anywhere. Shaun, go away for just a little bit.
Bye.
Welcome back to Forte Catholic. This is your host, Taylor Schroll. I'm excited today to learn about a man that I've been very interested in for quite some time, but just never took the time to really dive in. So that's what I'm going to do today. We are going to be talking about the one and the only K Chesterton, with a man who seems to be the premier scholar on this man's life, on his writings, on his books. I am talking, of course, about Dale Ahlquist. Dale, how are you doing today, sir?
Taylor, I'm doing great. God bless you. It's great to be with you today.
Thanks, man. So you told me right before we went on the air that you are live from Minnesota. Is that the truth, or were you lying to me just to get your levels?
I was not lying to you. I am in Minnesota, and it is snowing right now, even as I speak.
See, it just sounds so much like the truth. I'm just going to go ahead and believe you. I was just up north a couple weeks ago, and I do not envy you guys living up in the snow. That is rough stuff, man.
Well, we're getting ready for Lent, even a little early here, okay?
You've been suffering since November.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Dale, there are two people within this interview that I have heard of but don't know too much about. One being K Chesterton, who you are a fantastic scholar of and wrote a book about that we're going to talk about. But also you. I have heard your name through things, but I haven't really gotten a chance to really get to know you. So I want to do that now. Tell us all a little bit about Dale.
Well, I was raised a Baptist, Taylor, and started reading K Chesterton, who did a number on me, and I started working clearly into his writings and found my way to the Catholic Church as a result. K Chesterton is still a maker of converts, and I did a master's degree on Chesterton's writings. I started the American Chesterton Society, and then went on to start a classical Catholic high school, Chesterton Academy, where we sort of implemented his ideas along with classical learning and created a model that's being used in Catholic high schools around the country. There's 15 other Chesterton Academies now as a result of the first one. So it's a work that continues to expand. But the interest in Chesterton has been sort of the driving passion of my life. I did a television show on EWTN for 15 years called The Apostle of Common Sense, and that introduced a lot of people to this jovial and wonderful writer.
So just in interviewing, one of the basic follow-up questions is, what do you do in your free time or your spare time? And it sounds like you don't have any.
Yeah, I don't know what that term free time actually means.
Your work is Chesterton, and in your free time, you also Chesterton.
Yeah, I do Chesterton for enjoyment, and that's pretty much 24 hours. So there you go.
That's wonderful. So you had so much information there. I want to dive into some of it piece by piece. How does a Baptist even find K Chesterton?
Well, here's a good link. C.S. Lewis. Evangelicals tend to love C.S. Lewis, as they should. He's a great Catholic apologist, even though he wasn't Catholic. He just really did a reasonable presentation of the Christian faith. And the force behind C.S. Lewis, the big influence in his life, was K Chesterton. So it was a matter of trying to get to the source of C.S. Lewis. And that's why I discovered K Chesterton.
It makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people say Lewis is everybody's favorite non-Catholic Catholic, you know? So like a lot of people love him, and he is that bridge. That totally makes sense for you. You also said that you started and you are the president of the American Chesterton Society. What actually do you guys do? That sounds quite intriguing, but I couldn't even tell you right now what it even starts to begin doing.
All right, well, we publish a magazine, Gilbert Magazine, which is, it's the best magazine in the world.
Of course, that's what I've heard.
And we write on art and religion and politics, but we give it a nice Chestertonian flair and fill the magazine with good quotations. And some original Chesterton essays. So people just get lots of good meat to chew on with each issue. And then we host a national conference each year, and we also have a very, very active website. And we publish books, and I do a lot of speaking in conjunction with the society as well. And there's local Chesterton societies that meet all around the country and discuss Chesterton's books, and that's part of the wheels of how people become Catholic. They get exposed to Chesterton, and next thing they know, they want to become Catholic.
We've been tricking people with Chesterton and Lewis for years. I love it. So you mentioned, I would not have understood the Gilbert reference until yesterday when I was doing research for this interview. I can see now, like K Chesterton he sounds like he looks. Like every time I've seen him in a picture, he's a strong man, a big man, smoking a pipe, or smoking a cigar, and some quote like super awesome about Catholicism and drinking and smoking. Like that's what I picture. That man that I picture does not look like a Gilbert Keith. I totally get now why he chose to go by K Chesterton.
Yeah, that is funny. Gilbert is an off-putting name, but GK sounds just right.
So to all of our listeners named Gilbert, find a good middle name and just go by your initials, and you will be instantly 1,018% cooler. That's all you have to do. That's what. If you learn nothing else from today's show, this is just for the Gilberts. Okay, so what do you think? I mean, it worked for you, and it worked for others that you have talked about how Chesterton is bringing people into the Catholic faith. What do you think it is about Chesterton that does that?
Well, Chesterton writes about everything. And so what happens is you start falling in love with him as a writer because you want to hear what he has to say about whatever it is he's talking about, whether it's art or literature or politics or psychology or history or philosophy or religion, whatever it is, or if it's about detective fiction, he's a detective story writer too. Whatever it is, he pulls you in, and then you want more. And pretty soon you find that you're thinking differently because he presents a more cohesive worldview that is joyful and is complete, and it doesn't act Protestant. And so you realize you're thinking differently, and you've already dropped a lot of your objections to the historical Christian faith, and then all of a sudden you realize that you've gotten yourself into a very dangerous spot, and you're starting to ask big questions.
I think that's why, like I mentioned at the beginning, like I haven't read one of his entire works, but every quote I see, I'm like, man, that guy's awesome. I need to read some more of his books because I love that joy aspect of it. Like our motto here at the show is make Catholicism fun again, and I totally see his joy just in these these quotes that I see floating through Instagram or on posters in schools and this sort of thing. And you talk about how he writes. So you wrote this book called Night of the Holy Ghost, which is a short introduction into K Chesterton. It tackles his writings, offers rebuttals to his critics, and introduces writers just to this very famous Catholic convert that has been responsible for the conversions of you and so many others. So I actually have never heard any criticisms of him, and you tackle in the book some of the rebuttals to his critics. So first of all, what do some of the critics of Chesterton say?
Well, one of the things that they point out, Taylor, is they say he was fat.
I'm ready for this rebuttal because I'm totally going to use it. I'm a little chubby myself.
Well, the answer is, yeah, he was fat. Okay. But it's not a sin, it turns out, to be fat. As K Chesterton says, I'm sure that the thin monks were holy, but the fat monks were humble. But the argument we have to address is, well, how did he get to be fat? Was he a glutton? And that's what people just assume. He must have been a glutton in order to become fat. And it turns out he was not a glutton. He actually had some sort of a glandular condition that led to his great size. It only really ballooned twice in his life, where he was really, reaching 300 pounds. The other time, he was just a big man. He was tall and he was wide, but not a glutton, not an overeater. In fact, his secretary and his wife and some of his best friends commented on how little he ate. So that doesn't work as a criticism. But the other criticism is much more serious. People have accused him of anti-Semitism, of racism, and I dispense with those criticisms in the book because they simply, there's no basis for them, and they really seem to be a personal attack on Chesterton in order to avoid really what Chesterton's main points are about anything he's writing about. Chesterton is such a great debater and such a great reasoner that people don't really hold their arguments against what he's talking about, which is the Catholic faith and about a very holistic way of thinking about everything. They don't have good rebuttals, so they have to attack him personally in order to bring him down and make him irrelevant. And those personal attacks are unfounded.
It's just fake news. That's what we would say in today's modern culture.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Chesterton being a journalist, I mean, that's really his primary way of making a living. He himself was so aware of this concept of fake news that we call it. He said, most journalism is very unreliable, and he knew that being a journalist, but seeing the insides of how the news works and how it really represents economic interests or political agendas more than it represents an objective telling of the truth.
So you mentioned in the book there are two titles for G.K. Chesterton that really stuck out to me. One being the Prince of Paradox and the other being the Apostle of Common Sense. So how is G.K.? Can I just call him G.K.? Are we close enough yet that I can just call him GK? Okay. So how is he the Prince of Paradox? What does that mean for him?
That's a title that he gained during his lifetime because he has this wonderful way of presenting the truth in a very unexpected manner and putting a nice little twist on it. So when he says things like the self is more distant than any star, or the pursuit of health is always going to be unhealthy. And the love of man can sometimes be unmanly. It's wonderful twists in the language and sometimes turning a truth inside out in order to get us to see it better. Because truth is paradoxical. Truth is often the opposite of what we expect. It seems to have a contradictory quality to it. But the other source of paradox besides reading G.K. Chesterton is another book that says things like the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And if you're going to save your life, you have to be willing to lose it. And the dead shall rise and a virgin shall give birth. Those are all paradoxes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even as you were saying that, I started thinking we have a God that is one and he's also three. We're just good at the confusing, and it can be confusing. But at the same time, as you were mentioning some of these paradoxes that G.K. Chesterton wrote about, it's one of those things that he could just tell you the truth. But as you were saying those things, those paradoxes, you're able to chew on and kind of make it helps me to think through those things instead of just oh yes, God is good. That's very true, but I'm not going to go much further with that than with some of these paradoxes that I actually have to go through and think about.
Right. When he says the least grain of dust has never been praised enough, that makes you look at the world differently. Chesterton is someone who will shock you with what you already know. And that is another paradox. And that's why he's such a good detective fiction writer, because that's how detective fiction works. They give you the answer, but you don't see it. And then when they actually reveal the answer, you go, "Oh yeah, I knew that."
I love just in shows where they'll start with that. They'll show you in the pilot of the show or at the beginning of the book, you'll give you the answer, but then they'll make you doubt that answer throughout the entire rest of the book. And then at the end, you're like, "Oh yeah, I knew that. I was just tricked into not knowing that." Okay.
And Chesterton, he writes the essays the same way. His essays will shock you with the truth that you already know.
So the other one is the apostle of common sense. Now, I think just as a whole, as a community, we have lost common sense. Like, there is no such thing because everybody there's nothing common anymore and there's no sense. So how is this man, the apostle of common sense, helpful for readers today?
Yeah, that's the title that I gave him, and that was the title of the show that I did on him on EWTN. And yes, common sense, it seems to have been banished from the society. Chester says it's the extinct branch of psychology, common sense. He's the point is, he's so refreshing when you read him. You go, oh man, someone said that. I've been waiting for someone to say that a family consists of a husband and a wife who are a mother and a father, and they have a child. That's what a family is. Oh, wow. Someone said it.
We've all been holding this in for so long.
Yeah. And the common sense has to go with making us look back and to see the truths that we had in common that really formed our culture and formed our society in the first place. And we have to go back to find those things that are in common because, they've gotten really diffused and confused in our present day when people are questioning absolutely everything and they're skeptical about everything. Chesterton affirms things and does it in a way that is very uplifting.
Well, you've convinced me about getting the book. You've convinced me about Chesterton, and you've convinced me about this man named Dale. I like you a lot. So how can people get connected with you, and how can they find the book?
Well, they're welcome to come to our website at chesterton.org. That's chesterton.org. If they go to chesterton.com, they'll get hydraulic valves. There's nothing wrong with that, Taylor, but if they want G.K. Chesterton, it's chesterton.org. They'll learn a lot about the man there. But that's the way to get this book, Night of the Holy Ghost. And I should mention another book that we just came out with at the same time called My Name is Lazarus, 34 Stories of Converts Whose Path to Rome was Paved by G.K. Chesterton.
Oh, cool.
34 stories of conversions. And, we're talking about Muslims, Jews, agnostics, atheists, and every stripe of Protestant who encountered Chesterton, and he led them to Rome.
Well, that's wonderful. Look, hey, we're out of time, but I have one yes or no question. You get no explanation. Yes or no, will G.K. Chesterton become a saint in the next 100 years?
Yes.
Awesome. Dale, thank you so much for coming on. I will talk to you again soon. Everybody else, we will be back in just a few minutes for our final segment of the day. Welcome back to Forte Catholic, and I am welcoming back Shaun McAfee. I thought about not bringing him back, but I couldn't figure out how to hang up with this complicated system that we use. So he's still here. Shawnee, what's up, man?
You love me.
I really do. You're so cool. I just want to remind everyone in the audience that love isn't a feeling. Love is a choice. Okay, moving on. So we talked earlier about the Oscars, Shaun, that you didn't watch because you're not an American. And so I went and did a talk on Sunday, but which was the night of the Oscars, right? But before we even get to there, I have to tell you what happened Saturday. Saturday, I went to a track meet. Why? Because I'm a large pudgy man trying to run in circles quickly? No, because I am the coach for the local Catholic school team here in Bryan, and we're actually a pretty decent team. And Shaun, have you ever been to Texas?
Yes.
What were you doing in Texas, and when were you there, and what's your social security number?
Driving straight through. Just kidding. No, I was stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base, and I attended basic training down by you, down in San Antonio.
Oh, cool. I didn't.
So I lived there for a number of months in training, and of course I've driven all throughout the state, I-10, I-40, I-20.
See, this is the thing about a loving relationship. There's always something new to learn. I had no idea we had that coming. I used to live 3 houses away from the fence to the base. I was like, right.
No way.
Won't you be my neighbor?
With the Sonic there?
What did you really just ask me about a specific restaurant?
Yeah, you would know. Big Sonic sign, man.
Shaun. Do you realize this is an army base we are talking about, a military base that we are talking about, okay? Do you realize how many miles of fence there are around this military base?
I thought you said you lived near the gate.
I live near the fence.
Oh, okay, the fence. Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
God.
well, so that might have been like back in the woods.
So you've been to Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Texas, I don't know. Tell me if you've experienced this. Maybe it happened to you while you were at a local fast food chain. You experience all the seasons within one day.
Was it Sonic?
It was Sonic. Yeah, I was. Golly. You know what?
Continue.
I shouldn't have brought you back. I should have used my better judgment, found a way to hang up on you, and just leave you alone. Okay, it's so funny. I'm doing all this exposition to get to the point, and you're just like, what was the color of the shirt you were wearing, Taylor? The point is, we experienced all the seasons that day. So when we left, we were worried the track meet was going to be canceled because it was like 40 degrees, raining for the last 2 days, and just like nasty. So we were like, okay, it's really like nasty weather. So all I'm wearing is a jacket. Do you want to know it was a gray jacket. I don't remember the brand. I apologize to you deeply, Shaun. I was wearing pants as always. And I was just set out for a cold and like cloudy day, right? Well, about an hour and a half in, the God parted, he parted the seas in the Old Testament. He parted the clouds, and it was just a beautiful, yet very sunny and hot day. So Taylor is not prepared for this. Taylor thought it was going to be very cold and dreary, so I didn't bring anything to cover my very, very large, very bald head. So I'm out in the middle of this field with no shade for like 14 hours that day. So I get to the end of it, and like 2 hours until the end. And this other man who's a coach walks up to me who has a large beard and also no hair on his head. And he said, buddy, you look like you're struggling. I said, yeah, I wasn't prepared for this. So he gave me a hat. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of me in a hat. I'm always wearing like a flat-billed baseball hat, right? Yeah. This man gave me the white people version of a sombrero. Like it was like this huge farmer's hat that I put on top of my head. And like, I swear the bowl of this thing had like a 3-foot radius, like I could have probably carried children in the brim of the hat. So I looked ridiculous, but my head was no longer on fire. So the whole point of telling this is when I get to the church on Sunday to give this talk right before the Oscars, I look like Bob the Tomato from VeggieTales. And you said that, you only watch children's shows, so I'm assuming that you're familiar with Bob the Tomato.
Yes.
I really had this deep desire to walk in to give this talk by getting like 3 blades of grass and like taping them to my head so that I actually looked like a tomato. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. So the other thing is I yelled all day on Saturday. So I had lost my voice. Like I'm still trying to get it back. My voice keeps cracking. This is wonderful radio.
Who were you yelling at?
My team. I yell a lot at the team. It helps, I promise. They love me. Yay. You know what? They love me as much as I love you. And the people that have been listening to the show for the entire episode will figure out what that means. Okay. So I walked in as a tomato with no voice. And this is what I was charged with. My friend, who's the youth minister at this church, said, Taylor, here's what I want you to do today. You have about 100, maybe 80 junior high students, and I want you to teach them the book of Romans. Oh, how long do I have? 15, maybe 20 minutes. So, Shaun, if you were presented with how are you going to teach an entire book of the Bible to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in 15 minutes, like how would you even begin to go about that?
I don't know. Romans is probably tough, right? Because it's the longest epistle in the New Testament.
Yeah, this is the meatiest of Paul's letters. Like a lot of people say it's like his masterwork. Like it's everything that he ever like wants to get across. He gets across in Romans.
Unless he was the author of Hebrews too. That was pretty thick.
Well, that's just very controversial, Shaun. We like to stay away from controversy, especially 2,000-year-old controversy.
Next week we're having what is his name? Jeff Cavins on as a guest.
No, we're not. Why are you lying to everyone?
Oh, I'm making promises. Okay.
No, we're not. You know, we actually have a huge guest next week.
Ooh.
I every time I say that we are going to have a guest next week and I say who it is, it never works out. But Shaun, if everything works out, this silly show where we talk about Lego movies and Oscars and me looking like a tomato, if everything works out, we have on the schedule a real Catholic bishop that's going to come on the show.
I was going to guess bishop. Yeah.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that, friends. You're going to want to tune in next week either to hear a bishop or to hear me go, well, we were going to have a bishop on today, but something happened, because that always happens whenever I say who I'm going to have on. So
how did you teach him about Romans?
So here's what I did. I said, okay, I'm going to find like my favorite verses in Romans, like one from every section of Romans, because there's all these different sections as I was doing my research, and we all know that means I was looking at something for 12 minutes. All these sections of Romans, right? So I was like, I'm going to get a verse from each of these segments, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like give each verse like 2 to 3 minutes, and I presented it as this is the Oscars. And what we were doing is these are all the nominees for best verse in Romans. And at the end, I had them vote on who the Academy Award went to for best verse in Romans. It was great, and it was so much fun. The kids enjoyed it.
It's pretty good.
I enjoyed it, and we got our vote. So here's what we're going to do, Shaun. We're gonna walk through some of these, and I want our audience to have this same chance as at a vote. So we're going to go through more than 4, but then we're going to narrow it down, Shaun. You're going to help me do this. 4 best verses, and then we're going to put that to the audience, and they're going to vote this week on who gets the Academy Award. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Okay, so in Romans 1, it says that we have all exchanged the glory of God for images. And he's talking there about like idols and that sort of thing. What are our idols today, Shawnee?
Probably our cell phones.
Yeah, exactly, right? So John Piper, who's one of my favorite Protestants, says now like the modern day version is like the one in the mirror, or the one like when we're taking selfies, right? Like that's the image that we have put in front of God now. So that's our first nominee. Our second nominee for Academy Award. Romans 5:8. But God, this is one of my personal favorites. I don't want to sway the vote too much, but this one I've talked about on the show before. But God proves his love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While you were an enemy of God, Shawnee, he died for you. Again.
That whole chapter is amazing.
You're amazing. Love, again, isn't a choice, or isn't a feeling. It's a choice. And Jesus chose, even when he wasn't feeling you, he died for you anyway. Okay. Romans 5:20. The law crept in so that the offense would increase, but where sin increased, grace abounds even more. I've been explaining these.
Should we sin more so that we get more grace?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the professional author and non-American. What do you think?
Let's ask Paul.
Let's ask Paul. Do you have him on the line? Paul, we've got you on the line here.
Oh, hello.
Ciao.
Hello, Taylor. It's nice to see you. My voice didn't used to be this low, but I've been dead for a very long time. Why are you using my book for some silly game on a radio show?
I'm sorry, Paul. I deeply apologize. Okay. This one is where Paul does his rap song, okay? Romans 8. We conquer overwhelmingly through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor present things, nor future things, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord. So what can separate you from the love of God, Shaun McAfee?
0.
0. The number 0. If dividing by 0 is the only thing that can separate you from the love of God. Nothing can separate you from the love of God. Okay? You like that one?
Good.
Okay. The next one. Romans 8:28. All things work for the good of those who love the Jesus. That's my translation. The New Taylor translation. NTT. What does that one mean to you, Shawnee?
0. Just kidding. Okay. That's like the most popular verse in Romans, I think.
Do you think so? I think it's up there as well.
I think it's probably the most well-known of all of Paul's quotes.
Really?
That and what Philippians 1:3 or something.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Even lift this building? No. And then the last one we're going to go through, Romans 12:2. This one's I think is pretty popular, at least within youth ministry stuff or ministry things. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Shaun, how do you renew your mind, buddy?
With Plato.
Yeah? Explain that. Let's dive deeper into this.
Well, it's a routine use in clinical psychology for people who have either lost their mind or are losing their mind to remember what they see in Plato.
And you know this from personal experience?
You could say that.
I just wanted to get you to say it. All right, Shaun, so we need to pick 4 of these, just 4. Let's get your first nominee. What's the one that you want to have as a nominee?
What was the first one? It was Romans 5:2? 5:8?
5:8. That was the second one. But God proves his love for us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us.
Let's make that. Oh, gosh, they're all so good. What was the very first one? It was Romans 1.
We have exchanged the glory of God for images.
That one. Let's make that the last one.
Okay. So we got that one. And then we've got, I'm going to go, but God proves his love for us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You get one more nominee. What's yours?
Include that one.
Include that one. Okay. Well,
let's go with the popular one. It's Romans 8:28.
Okay. 8:28. All things work for the good of those who love him. And then my last one is Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So here's what you need to do, people. Go. I'm going to put this poll out on social media at Forte Catholic on Twitter. That's where the poll is going to be. It'll also be on the Forte Catholic Facebook account. I think you can do that there. Go check it out. We're going to award the first ever Forte Catholic Academy Award. I don't know if I'll get sued for that, but it's worth it to me. Your enjoyment, listener, is worth me getting sued. So, Shawnee, thanks for coming on today. You're my friend, and I love you.
I believe you.
You do believe me. All right. Well, I'm glad the internet ran out right at the end of this interview. That was fun. Shaun kept cutting in and out. Thanks, Italy. I want to thank you as an entire nation state. I want to thank all of you for listening. I want to thank the Academy Awards for not giving me an award. I want to thank Mahershala Ali for being so cool and wearing a cool hat at the Oscars. And I want to thank Jesus, my personal Lord and Savior. This has been Forte Catholic. We'll be back next week. See ya! Hello, friends. You made it to the end of the podcast. Congratulations. Now, here's the real deal. If you listened all this way, it means that you liked it in some capacity. Here's what I need you to do. Take 30 seconds before you listen to the next episode. Search in your iTunes or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Search for Forte Catholic. Go give it a review. It'll take you 30 seconds and will help me out a lot. And it'll help you help others make Catholicism fun again, which is essentially like evangelizing. So you're off the hook for that today. If you give me a review, go do it. Otherwise, I will be sad. Oh, have a good week.